Thank you, Yang Amat Berhormat, for the enlightening speech. Now I'd like to invite our moderator for the day, Dr. Anwar Faza, up to the stage.
Citizens of the universe, that's how I like to start, because here was a universal figure. And children of Mother Earth, because we all live and share one planet, and what we're going to discuss is how we are managing this particular planet. One of the most wonderful things that ever was said about Dr. Wu Lien-Teh was in an obituary immediately after his death in the Times newspaper in United Kingdom. And it said something very special. It said, by his death, the world of medicine has lost a heroic, that was a powerful word. I mean, they rarely used that, heroic, and almost a legendary figure. This is for the whole world. And he says, for the world at large, it is far more indebted to him than it knows. Yeah? And this is how we had, in a way, lost the heroicness and the legendariness of the person until we had wonderful developments in Harbin, wonderful links to Singapore and back in Penang, and now we have revived this person, made him alive in order to continue this tradition of being, you can say, as professional could be, as scholarly could be, as humble could be, because when he retired, he bought a single-story house in Aitam and was going to live in his retirement just as a very simple... A person who, although he had a PhD and could go anywhere in the world, ran for most of his life, ran a simple family clinic. I mean, it's just amazing, that kind of humbleness in him. So today we are celebrating him with the inaugural lecture named after him. And when we thought about who to invite for this lecture, we developed several criteria. One, we said we wanted somebody who was global, somebody who was also involved in global health, somebody who also had a kind of universalist approach to health and to the world. And when we look around, we found there is a United Nations University International Institute of Global Health. And this deals with the very issues that Wu Lien-Teh did. If this institute was set up 50 years ago, Wu Lien-Teh would probably have been the Director General. But it was set up recently. And when they set up, the current Director General is Professor Anthony Capon, and he's here. I'd like you to come and take the stage. Yeah. Professor Tony is also from a very universal place, small like in Penang, but very global, a place called New Zealand. And a place again that, like Penang, is proud of its livability, is proud of its diversity, is proud of the simplicity and humanity that Penang also represents. He also has his ancestry as Maori, and if any one of you wants a course on rubbing noses, you can have a consultation as a very familiar reading, because he's a specialist on global health issues, and he has chosen as his topic something very significant in the world, and that's the link between health, habitats, and human beings. Because as we know, and as YB just now reminded, the world is going urban. Malaysia itself is already over 70% urban. And urbanness brings a concentration, and it brings very often not only great opportunities, but also possible ugliness because of the proximity that you have. And so we have new kinds of challenges that we are having, challenges that relate to communicable diseases that just spread out, and you remember how in London when you had the earliest plague that was very well documented, it just spread and nobody knew what to do until one person started looking at statistics and said, where did people get sick? And he said, this person got sick, this person got sick, this person got sick, this person got sick. And he drew a map, and he found that the origin was a water pump in one particular place. I mean, that became like the science of epidemiology, of really looking at this. And those are the kinds of fields that we have with our speaker. We also not only have a great challenge of communicable diseases, and we know even in Penang, in Malaysia, the whole issue of dengue, malaria is coming back. It was something that we thought we had dealt with. And a whole range of other things. We talk about SARS and all the variations of SARS. But not only are we talking about communicable diseases, we have in parallel a whole range of diseases that you can say are man-perpetrated. And this is issues that relate to the way we manage health as a whole. And this is, again, one of the areas in which our speaker is going to address, because it's not just getting communicable diseases. If you don't even listen to your own body, if you don't even care, then you have a new problem. And we know now we have the strange and unconscionable phenomena that in the world today, there are far more people that are obese than there are people who are poor. And suffering from nutrition. I mean, the world has changed. And you have these two huge problems at either end. People who are starving, who need help, who need nutrition, and people who are just getting sick as a result of their inability to understand food. And you know, the food business has become also a very unhealthy business. And we in Penang, of course, are very proud about our food. And we want to be proud also that the kinds of foods that we want to make are healthy, generous, and we are often called the street food capital because nobody can beat us on how clean and enjoyable our food is in this place. So it's my great pleasure now to invite Tony Capon to address us on the topic of human habitat, habits, and health, informing the future with lessons from history. Anthony, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks so much for that wonderful introduction, Anwar, and the wise words from our elected officials today. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you here in Penang. I was mentioning just before that I first came to Penang when I was a young medical student. I was 20 years old. I'd spent a month in Singapore at Singapore General Hospital doing a short stint there, learning about TB, which remained a big problem back there in the 1980s. And I came to Malaysia for a holiday because Australians love the beach and the warm climate, and it was suggested to me that Penang was the best place to come at Christmas time if I was coming to Malaysia. And I have such fond memories of being here at that time, and those memories have stuck with me. And when the opportunity to move to Kuala Lumpur here in Malaysia to direct the Institute came about, the location was a great enticement for me to be back in Malaysia. A country I think that really shares with Australia and New Zealand, where I've spent most of my life, a very relaxed way of life, less formal here in Penang, but people very focused, very determined to make a difference from a societal point of view. And of course, that's what we're here today, to celebrate the life, to honour the life of Dr. Wu, a remarkable individual that I continue to learn more about. And reflecting on the words from the Chief Minister just now, he pointed to the fact that Dr. Wu had essentially been harassed by the establishment here in Malaysia when he was charged with having opium himself. And as a public health person, I know that once the vested interests in society are focusing on you as an individual, you know that you're effective, you know that you're doing the job well. I think Anwar would know that from the work on tobacco control he's done with Simon Chapman and others over the years, that the tobacco industry tends to target the individuals who are making a difference and making changes. And that's what Dr. Wu experienced in his lifetime. But of course, perhaps he wouldn't have ended up in Harbin if he hadn't been, in a sense, encouraged to leave. So he managed to turn that into really a very remarkable contribution internationally that we still are learning from today, the work that he did. So I'll just check, will I be able to change the slides from here? Yeah. And is this also a pointer if I need to point?
Yes,
it is.
It also looks okay.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much. I think I'll probably take about 40 minutes, if that's okay. I'll just better take my watch off to make sure that I don't overdo this, and I'll hurry up towards the end if I need to. But
you're going to use the pointer. You want to even go there and look there, or whatever.
Will I be able to take this or not? Because maybe they couldn't hear at the back.
We have a cordless one.
Yeah, particularly if you want to use.
Oh, look, I think I'll be okay.
Right.
Yeah, because people may not see me from down the back if I go down on the floor. Let me just advance to the. Do I push here? Yeah, yeah. So, in thinking about the cities in which we live, our habitat now, and our health, I think it's really important that we remind ourselves of what's happening globally in terms of population. So this data here from the United Nations, estimates of the population of the world, and you can see here, hopefully up the back as well, that projected from 1950 here on the left part of the diagram, through to about 2030. And these purple bars are the total world population. The blue bar is the number of people living in the countryside, and the red bar is the number of people living in the cities of the world. Now, there's clearly some key messages coming through here. I find it quite useful when I look at this sort of data to think about what's happened in my lifetime. As it happens, I was born in 1960, which was the year that Dr. Wu died. So if we look over here in 1960, I think this one here. So the population of the world at the time that Dr. Wu died was 3 billion. Now, here we are over here at the moment. We've just passed the point where more people in the world now live in cities than in the countryside, and the population of the world at the moment is about 7 billion. So in the time since Dr. Wu died, not that long ago really, and that's the duration of my life, and I think perhaps the Chief Minister is about the same age as me, in that short lifetime, 50 years or so, then the population of the world has more than doubled, from 3 billion to 7. And by the time that the Chief Minister and I die, which will hopefully be off the chart over here, depending on how we go from our personal health point of view, then the population of the world is projected to be around 9 or 10 billion. That may well be the peak of the population ever on the world around the time that we might die. And by then, it's expected that 2/3 of the people in the world will be living in cities. So when I was born in 1960 on a farm in New Zealand, I was one of the 2 billion people living in the countryside. But when I die, I will probably be living in a large city, Sydney, Penang. Many of us have moved from rural areas to urban areas. That's why we call it an urban transition. And so the 2/3 of us all will then be in cities. So the growth has substantially been through this lifetime in cities. So in thinking about cities and the way we design our cities, the way we develop them, the way we manage them, is enormously important for the health of many people.